In this video, I will be showing how to export a drainage submodel from a DGN file, and then how to import that file into import that submodel into a new file. Previously, to create backup copies of drainage models in the event that corruption ruined a drainage file, we would either use the Save As feature here, or we would, in ProjectWise, copy and paste files from folder to folder. Unfortunately, doing that creates corruption in the files, um, especially if elements that are corrupted in the drainage model are not caught, then they will carry over from file to file. So in short, exporting and importing drainage submodels into new DGN files is the best practice for creating backups of the file. And to do that, it's very simple. If you go into the Drainage and Utilities workflow, and in this Home tab, you'll see in this Model Import Export, this Import Utilities and Export Utilities. We will be exporting a drainage submodel. And in order to export, you will need to select the elements that you would like to include in the export. If you're doing just a simple backup of your file, then you can just select everything graphically on the screen. And one of the nice things about this is there's two ways that you can select elements. You can either select them, like I said, graphically by just highlighting all the elements in the file, or conversely, if you know the nodes, links, and areas you'd like to include in the export, you can come over here to the Project Explorer in the Drainage and Utilities model and simply highlight the nodes and links by holding down the Shift key or the Control key, which nodes and links you'd like to include. Some useful applications of selecting only a few nodes and links, or select nodes or links, is, for example, if I wanted to include only the existing drainage out of a file that has both proposed and existing drainage and utilities, that would be one way I could quickly create a backup that has only one type of element in it. And as a warning, one thing that can happen is if, say, you select a pipe and don't select either the upstream or downstream node, that can lead to errors when you import the model again. So be sure that you select all of the nodes and links, and that if you select links, that you select both upstream and downstream nodes to prevent corruption when you re-import your file. So for the sake of this example, I'll do a full export of everything in my DGN. So I will highlight all of the elements that I know are in the drainage model. And once they're highlighted, I'll simply select export and then export drainage submodel. And I have gone ahead and created a backup folder in my personal working folder for this specific project, where I am storing all of these submodels. And I find that that's a very useful thing to do so that all of your submodels and backup copies are stored in one location. Okay. You can denote here the export model, that the file type will be listed as an SQLite file. And there's one other format I believe that's available, but this SQLite file is the one that we will want to use. You can see I already have my folder that I have created in my working here is backup drainage. And usually I will just name it as this untitled. I'll go ahead and hit save. And one thing to note to make sure you are doing this right, you should see numbers filled in for each of these element types that correspond with the numbers of elements in your model or the number of the elements you selected. So a good thing to pay attention to while the model is exporting, and then the same thing when it's importing. And I see the display complete in my info box in the left. So the export is complete. And I'll go to project wise and locate this in my working folder. Okay, here's this untitled.sqlite, the export I just created. And I will usually go through to make the backup copy the name of a previous backup, and then just simply change the date at the beginning. Same with the file description, not necessary, but something that I always do. Okay, so now we have this 2024 11-24 Drainage Design South Final Build Out backup copy here. And I will go ahead and show the process now for importing this in case of corruption. So say that my original file is no longer usable for whatever reason, and that I need to create a fresh copy using my latest backup. To do that, now back in this new file, Drainage and Utilities, in this Home tab, I'm going to go to Import Utilities, Import Drainage Submodel. And since this is a fresh file created directly from a seed file, there's currently no Drainage and Utilities project. So I'm going to go ahead and embed one. Okay. Once it gets to this step, this warning is essentially saying that importing a submodel is not undoable, and that any options or any open roads actions that are in this undo stack up here will be cleared once this is put in. So if there are things that you would like to undo or changes you'd like to make that are in this undo stack, to go ahead and make those before you embed this model. Since I have none, I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. Okay, so you can see it went right to that backup drainage models folder that I've been using. But you can see that there's currently no files listed, and that's because, like I said, there are multiple extensions, multiple file types for these drainage and utilities submodels. This one isn't .mdb, we're using SQLite, so we'll go ahead and change that. And there are all of my backups. And we're going to go ahead and use this recently created backup here. And then, like I said before in the export, just to quickly pay attention to all the elements and the numbers to make sure that they roughly match up with what you'd expect based off of your export. Once it reaches this stage, and this export and import process can take a decent amount of time depending on the size of the file. Obviously, a larger file is going to take longer to export and import. It may appear at times that OpenRoads is either not responding or is crashed. That is most likely not the case, and it will just take some patience while it loads. So I believe at this point the import of the file is complete. Usually I will look for the little circle next to my selector arrow. And normally when you import the model, it won't appear on the screen because you'll need to fit the view. And you can see there's the model exactly as I exported it. I did skip ahead quite a bit, so don't be worried, especially if you're working on a home Wi-Fi. If this takes a significant amount of time, 10 to 15 to 20 minutes is not out of the ordinary. So you'll just have to be patient, but when it does come in, it will come in exactly as you exported it with one or couple exceptions. One of those being if you zoom in on any of these gutters, you'll see that instead of before where I had these placed at the back center of my catch basin grates and re-importing the model, the locations of these grates on the CBs isn't preserved, just the upstream and downstream nodes. So it's just going to go put it in the exact same spot. Same with the pipes. So it might be a good idea to go through and review some of these, not critical, but maybe a good idea to review and make sure that your pipes are connecting where you want them to connect and that your uh, gutters are connecting at the back of the grate or wherever you'd like them to show. But that's essentially it. And so at this point, you should have a complete working new copy of your drainage and utilities model. And then all you will need to do to get your file completely back where it was before is add in any of your references.